Postman Pat and the Loaded Die. Welcome, my name is Postman Pat, and in this extravaganza I shall be describing how I was exploited for my knowledge of discrete random variables in masterminding one of the least ethical escapades ever. The end of the summer holidays was fast approaching. Mrs. Goggins was due back from her round-the-world cruise, and Mr. Taylor had just returned from Zakynthos. My rounds consisted of postcards and the usual selection of helping the villagers with their preventable predicaments. I translated a deaf child's sign language, conducted the Women's Institute's chamber choir, and judged a giant courgette competition. I had also directed the new Alien vs. Predator 2 movie. Late one summer's evening, just before twilight, I found a handwritten note at the bottom of my postbag. "Meet me at the casino at 8 p.m, implored the note, in what appeared to be a font reminiscent of the scriptures, indicating Reverend Timms as the most likely of authors. My mind quickly raced through the possibilities. Blackmail? An illicit card game? Surely the Reverend didn't have an addiction to gambling. I made my excuses to my wife and son and met the vicar at the stated temporal and physical location. My fears were soon dissipated. What else could be wanted from a humble postman with a degree in behavioural economics? My statistical acumen was in demand once again, and the only reason for inhabiting the casino was to create an appropriately hostile atmosphere. "As you have probably noted from our dedicated poster coverage, Pat," began His Holiness, "the Greendale Village Fete is next week. I have asked Ted Glenn, the local handyman, to run a dice game, but we need to discuss whether or not the game is fair." And so it came to be that the three of us were sat around a circular table in a dimly lit side room of the Pencaster Casino, discussing discrete random variables. Gaudy Venetian red carpets covered the walls, filling the already smoky air with fumes of near-pure ferric oxide. "Here is the table the five-faced die manufacturers have given me, stating each of the possible rolls and their associated probabilities," explained the clergyman, quite unnecessarily. "The rules of the game are quite simple. You just need to score a total of 10 or more with 3 rolls or fewer. We think asking for £1 to play seems reasonable, but we would like your impartial advice." On closer inspection of the instruction manual, it was evident that although there was complete information about the faces labelled 1, 2, 3 and 4, a corner had been ripped off the sheet, and the probability of 5 was missing. "You may not be aware of this," I began, "but the sum of all 5 probabilities must equal 1, and hence the probability of 5 is 0.1. I hesitated, considering carefully my next elucidation. But before we analyse the rules of this specific game precisely, I think we ought to study the die itself. Timms and Glenn nudged forward, eager to garner any morsel of information. The barman brought over 3 Bacardi Breezers. I divulged the concepts of EX, VARX and FX. "The mean roll can be calculated using this formula," I said, directing their attention to my scribble on the back of the bar bill, where sigma means add up. So although the central value is 3, the mean roll is 2.5, and the average score after 3 rolls is 7.5. Also necessary is the variance, because if the rolls are inconsistent, it might be possible to score 10 or more on a more frequent basis. The variance for this die is 1.75, and the standard deviation to the square root of that, 1.32. Just for completeness, I continued, I should mention the cumulative distribution function fx. So f3 equals 0.75, as does f3.8, even if 3.8 is itself impossible. The croupier glanced over to ensure that there was nothing disreputable taking place. I left my colleagues to deliberate over the models and theories we had assembled thus far, and took a few punts at red or black or 0. The roulette wheel reeked with the stench of past accumulated losses. "By the way," I added on my return, "were this a traditional fair die numbered 1 to n, of which each face had an equal probability of 1 over n, the mean and variance would be given by very basic formulae. Anyway, the game. I drew up a list of all the possible ways in which a punter might achieve a winning outcome. Where there are 2 of one number and 1 of another, there are 3 possible ways of achieving that score. Like Bob can be written as OBB and BBO, as well as BOB itself. Similarly, where there are 3 different letters, there are 6 possible ways of achieving that score, analogous to the 6 anagrams of cat: CAT, CTA, ACT, ATC, TAC, and TCA. Together we totted up the total probability of achieving a win. With just under 20% of players securing a win, we will be justified in charging £1 if the potential winnings are £5, I explained. Then the game is fair. I had misunderstood the emphasis. Reverend Timms and Ted Glenn chided my foolishness. They didn't want a fair game, they wanted to make a profit. All proceeds would be going to the local hospice. I had never before ruminated upon how statistics could be used for fiscal gain. "What if we want to make £100 on 200 players?" asked the handyman. I was taken aback at such scandalous talk, but they reminded me forcefully that I was only here to give impartial advice. Under duress, I responded. If 200 players each pay £1, you have takings of £200. If 20% of them win, then there are 40 winners. If you wish to reduce the prize fund by £100, then only £100 remains to be shared between the 40 winners, meaning that they should expect a prize of £2.50 each. The requirements fulfilled, I was escorted to the exit and charged for 3 Bacardi Breezes. Driving home with Jess, who had been waiting patiently throughout my ordeal, I felt tainted and impure. But no scrubbing could eradicate the feeling of being implicated in some squalid scheme. The village fete went ahead as planned, and Ted Glenn's store was heralded as a roaring success. The hospice bought some new bedding and a coffee machine. Little did they know the unethical way their purchases had been made available, their hands tarred with the contamination of subterfuge. Another adventure has ended for me, Postman Pat, my black and white cat Jess, and my encyclopedic knowledge of statistics.